Hello, my name is John Brink, and we are downtown Prince George in a podcast on the Brink. It's a snowy day in Prince George, beautiful Prince George, winter, early February, spring is around the corner hopefully, and today we have an amazing guest. Her name is Angela Lefebvre. Do I have that correctly?
You do. Usually it's a little softer on the B, so Lefebvre.
Lefebvre.
Yes, excellent. You did that so well.
Well, thank you. And Angela is an amazing guest. I was reading a little bit on her, and she has so many things in her background. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Have you been in Prince George? Are you from BC or northern BC?
I'm from BC, so my coming to Prince George was in 1999. And I came up here for a boy and built a family, and it's been amazing. I have found that in Prince George, I've really developed a lot of close friends and developed some relationships, and I love it here. Prince George is so welcoming, and I enjoy it so much. Prior to that, I have lived in Fort St. James. I was born on Vancouver Island. I was born in Duncan.
Duncan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is right by Mill Bay there in that area, right?
Yeah, that's right. So the North Cowichan area. And then I lived between Duncan and Chemainus. And I spent so much of my time outdoors when I was a child. And that's carried over into how I live today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then you grew up on the island then, more or less, or?
I did. So lived in Duncan for a while. My dad was in forestry, and he was in forestry, and the forestry industry started to dry up a bit on Vancouver Island.
Right.
And so what happened is we started to migrate north on the island. So we went from Duncan to Port Alberni to Port Hardy.
Yeah, did you work for Weston there, or one of those companies?
Yeah, I believe that was the one.
Right.
Yeah, and when we got to Port Hardy, we were only there for a year, and he was already needing to look for new work. And he had a family friend, the Solocanals, who had moved up into Fort St. James, and he invited... Also
forestry related?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So we all did a trip up there to take a look, and he was able to get work up there, and we as a family moved up. It was shocking to move from a Vancouver Island, temperate temperatures, to a northern interior. It was quite shocking.
What time of the year did you move?
It would have been in the summer, because I remember I had not quite finished grade 7. So I was right at the end of grade 7.
Yeah.
And we moved up to Fort St. James, and I remember walking into the classroom, and I was very unsure. I didn't know. The culture is slightly different in the north. Yeah. And I didn't get much time to bond with everybody before school was out. And then before I knew it, we went through summer, and I was starting high school.
So do you have siblings that were?
I do. So I have 3 sisters, younger sisters. Yeah. Yeah. And
So the 4 of you then, eh?
There's 4 of us, 4 girls. I think my dad was always wishing for a boy, but that never happened.
No.
Yeah.
So then you went to high school in Fort St. James?
Yeah, went to high school in Fort St. James. Yeah. And when I was up there, I had various jobs. I stayed there for a bit, and then I moved a little bit around after I graduated. Lived in Quesnel for a while. I did a small, short stay in Prince George, moved to Vancouver, and then moved back up to Prince George.
In 1999?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you came into Prince George in 1999, what were you doing then?
So I had been working for the Vancouver International Airport Authorities in Vancouver. And that was working for an office temp job. And they were just about to hire me out from the office temp. So they were going to buy out the contract and hire me full time. Okay. But then I had met Paul Lefebvre, and I had met him when I was working in Fort St. James at one of the mills.
Okay.
Tolo Forest Products.
Okay.
And we had met, we had talked, and relationships build through conversations and getting to know each other.
Yeah.
When I moved to Vancouver and I was working, we continued our relationship, and then we just decided it was something we wanted to continue with. So we had the decision, does he come down to Vancouver or do I come up?
Right.
I came up.
Yeah.
And so in 99 I came up, and I've been up here ever since.
So is he still working for the forest industry? Because Tolo was a finger joint plant, right?
Yeah, so he was working for Crystal Forest Products.
Okay.
And he was, so Tolo was a limited partnership between Apollo and the Nikosley.
Nikosley Band,
yeah. And so he is not still working for that company. He had moved a couple of different jobs, and now he's working for Bid.
Bid contracting?
Yeah.
Brian Fair.
Yes.
It used to be Brian Fair, he sold out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so he's then doing, is he working out of his office here then, or?
Yeah, so he does design.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then for me, when I came up, I got work at the Canada Revenue Agency.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So
that's usually when people pull back and want to change the
subject.
subject.
Okay. and not only, but you got awarded for being very good at Canada Revenue.
Yeah, so I did receive awards while I was there. I was there.
What were the rewards for?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, good. Thank you. I know I have it written down, and I did talk about them in a recent Facebook feed that I had done. One was oh gosh, I know the one that and we'll get into this in the future, about the nursing and how I got into nursing.
Yeah.
But I'm drawing a blank, John.
That's okay. So how long we had, not for very long, for about a year or so at Canada Revenue, or longer?
13 or 14 years I was there.
Oh, that long, eh?
Yeah.
So you built quite a career out of
Yeah.
Prince George in that office here
Yeah.
on Victoria Street.
Yeah.
And so that brought you into, were you then auditing, that kind of a thing, or?
I did work for Special Investigations, which is part of the audit group, but my core work was in the Taxpayer Services and Debt Management.
Okay.
A cleaner word for that is collections. I was a collection officer.
Yeah, and so you had to do that usually by phone. Did you have to not travel around to do?
I did travel.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
like, hey, I need your money.
Yeah. So we would do visits, and the visits was to visit people. A lot of times what happens is money is a very sensitive, and it puts people in a very vulnerable position.
Yeah.
And so what happens is people tend to withdraw, and they don't want to talk to Canada Revenue Agency.
But there's a certain amount of apprehension, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the work, it can be very difficult because you're dealing with people's livelihoods, and you're dealing with their way of living.
And challenges probably that they have.
Absolutely. People who fall into collections, they don't want to be there.
No.
A lot of times there's life events, there's pressures, financial pressures, and so they fall into it. And sometimes it can occur, and I've seen this countless times, where they go through an audit, and maybe they were relying on a loved one who was doing their books, or maybe there was other things happening.
Yeah.
Very few people purposely do anything on their taxes that's nefarious. So I tried to use as much compassion, sensitivity, and understanding when I worked my job. And one of my coworkers actually called me the holistic collector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had the compassion, then that to me sounds like a difficult thing to do. A lot of times you have to that if you become too involved in the issues, and there are lots of them, obviously, especially when people get to where they're being audited or under the pressure of that that you get exposed to some of the challenges they have.
Yeah, that's where the empathy comes in, which is slightly different than sympathy, right?
Yeah.
And with the empathy, you can look and have compassion for that person.
Yeah.
And the goal is to help them through that process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was always my goal.
So then you decided to leave from there.
Yes. So
what made you leave? Because 14 years is a long time to be in, especially a government job.
It is, and I had a permanent position. I could have been there till retirement, early retirement at 55, full pension.
Yeah.
And I was on maternity leave with my son, my second child. And I was thinking about how amazing this employer is, and how supportive they are for me. And then I was thinking, I'm going to get full pension. I get to retire at 55. This is something that not a lot of people get to see in life.
Yeah.
And I counted the number of years before I retired, and I realized for me that this is not something I wanted to stay in, and I wanted more growth and more opportunities for experiences.
Yeah.
With my workplace, I had the opportunity to do different types of leaves. So I had a 1 year and a 6-month leave.
Yeah.
I used the 1 year and I went and took nursing over at the College of New Caledonia.
Yeah, that's a whole different career.
It
Right?
is. It's completely different, but I've always loved sciences.
Yeah.
Always loved sciences. When I was in high school, I loved my biology. I loved those courses. I've always had an interest in health.
Yeah.
So I wanted to try it. I wanted to pursue it and see if it was something that I would want to move a career towards.
Right.
I loved my program.
Right.
And I graduated with honors, and I received the Leadership Award, and I discovered that learning pathophysiology and how to look at a person and do an assessment of their needs was something that I really enjoyed. It involves analytical and critical thinking.
Sure.
Yeah.
So did you then go work at the hospital, or was you nursing?
Yeah. So I did. I was on call for the hospital, and I worked in different departments in the hospital, but I also had to return to Canada Revenue Agency because it was only a leave, and with that leave, it's under this understanding that I return.
Yeah. Because
I had also taken maternity leaves, I also had to work for those times that I had taken off.
Sure.
So while I was at Canada Revenue Agency, I struck a wellness committee and worked on bringing in healthy focuses for the staff, trying to support them, and trying to apply my knowledge to my coworkers around me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also worked in the Occupational Health and Safety Committee, as well as a first aid attendant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all as a result of your studies at CNC?
Yes, all as a result. One of the incredible things I find, because I have moved between careers, various careers, is that you can always bring a skill set to a new job in a different career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then from there you want to...
So from there, I had gotten work at CRA as the learning coordinator. And at this point, this is when the offices had amalgamated. So the office in Northern BC had amalgamated with a southern office, Vancouver. And originally I was thinking I would move towards management, use this knowledge and skill set that I had learned through the college and apply it in my career. It doesn't seem like it would match, but it does. That critical thinking of analysis, creating a plan, evaluating that plan, and the continual work through that. So I had worked as a training coordinator, and the director, who was out of Vancouver during that time, really enjoyed it, and he wanted to develop me into management.
Right.
But to do that, he wanted me to come to Vancouver.
Yeah.
And it did not make sense for the lifestyle that me and my family led.
Yeah.
So with that, made the decision that I would take a look outside of Canada Revenue Agency.
Yeah.
Because I was almost, you've got those pivotal moments in your life that occur, and you can either stay within where you're at, and that's an okay decision, or you can take advantage of those pivotal moments. And I chose to take that leap.
Yeah, that becomes the road not taken or the road taken.
Yeah.
And kind of looking back, it was the right choice, it appears to me.
Yeah, I think so. And that will be an interesting discussion that maybe we can get into is there right and wrong, or is there just different outcomes?
Right.
So I looked for work, and I found it with the Native Education College.
Okay.
They were looking for someone to deliver the healthcare assistant program up in Seke and Quadacha.
Okay.
So I took it. It was only a 6-month term, and the risk is that leaving a permanent job with a full pension for only a 6-month contract.
Yeah.
Do you do it?
Yeah.
I decided to go for it.
Yeah.
It was amazing. We were successful. There was some graduates that came out of that program, and that empowers the community, and that I really loved.
So where was that college? Was it here in the area?
They're based out of Vancouver, but
Okay.
they had gotten the contract to deliver the program up in Seke and Quadacha. So there was a lot of logistics to try and figure out, how do you provide learning and training for people in a remote community when you can't necessarily fly in, fly out teachers on a regular basis?
Because how far, where is it physically?
It is north of Mackenzie, and
Okay.
there are roads, but they're very challenging.
Yeah.
So normally people are flying in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you station there then to put the course on, or did you?
I coordinated, and I was able to find a teacher who was willing to go into community and do the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so she delivered that component, and then we got to the part where the people who were in the program needed to come out of community to do their practical training. And so they came to Prince George.
Yeah.
I don't think people appreciate what that is for a small community and a close-knit community, especially when you're working with First Nations.
Yeah.
They are close-knit. Their cultural structure is based upon helping each other.
Yeah.
And it's not uncommon for the community to raise children, and they're there for each other. And so when you're pulling someone out of that community, that's hard on that person, and it's hard on the community.
I can see that.
Yeah, so kudos to these people, these women who did this, and because that was a lot. They sacrificed a lot to do this.
Yeah.
They were placed into situations where they had to adapt and be dynamic, and they were committed, and they were successful. And I'm proud to say that the community has these strong members who did this for the community.
Yeah, and their support system kind of disappeared when they were down here, right? So
yeah, and it's hard. It's lonely. It creates isolation for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But really helpful for the community, though. But to take those courses and
Yeah.
So then you did that. So what did you do then after the 6 months?
So I knew my 6 months was coming to an end, and I knew I needed to keep my eyes open for something. And I saw a job posting for a coroner with the BC Coroner Service. And they were looking for either or of an investigative background or a healthcare background.
Yeah.
And
You had
I was
both.
unique in that I had both. So
Yeah.
Canada Revenue Agency, I had that experience of investigation, and then because of my nursing, I had that healthcare.
Now, for the benefit of our listeners, a coroner is
We investigate unexpected deaths.
yeah,
And so with that, it's deaths that occur unexpectedly, and they can happen anywhere. They can happen out in the community, in the home, they can happen in the hospital. For myself, in the work I did, I was a community coroner, meaning that in the moment that the person is discovered, the coroner office is contacted, as well as the RCMP, and I would attend the scene. So the RCMP would go to the scene and secure it, and then I would come and conduct the investigation.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that means you would then attempt to determine the cause of death.
Yeah, in that moment, it's a lot of information gathering.
Yeah.
And we do try to categorize the type of death.
Yeah.
Because there's unexpected, unknown. So there's your homicides, there's accidental, there's natural causes. So many times it's natural.
Yeah.
And so we look for that. The part that I really enjoyed about the job is helping to find an answer, because many times family are left not knowing what happened because these are unexpected.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is known. Someone's dealing with a lot of different comorbidities, and comorbidities is when you have multiple diseases in process.
Yeah.
And so it is an expected death, but we'll still go out just to determine if that is what occurred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if there is an unexpected death, then then that could be at any hour of any day, and it may be 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you would get a call.
Yeah, that's very, very common. And a lot of times it is in the middle of the night. So when I was on call, because we would take turns being on call, we would go from scene to scene, and it can be long hours, and it can be very late at night.
Now the other thing, it's obviously immensely troubling these days with the drugs, where a lot of young people, die because of overdoses.
Yes.
And those in particular must be, all of them are obviously, difficult and troubling, but especially when you have young persons, there are so many of them, right?
It is. It's really hard. It's the people who are using drugs, they're dealing with things, and a lot of times they're trying to self-medicate, and there's different reasons people get into using it. And again, it's that compassionate piece and trying to understand it. And so one of the things the coroner's office does is we try to determine, is there any recommendations? Are we seeing any consistent information coming across? Is there anything we can do to help the community, to help society by making recommendations? So we'll go to the coroner office, will then say, I've noticed this, and this might be something a group, government group might want to take up and investigate and see if we can make some things, some plan of actions around it to address this issue. When I was in there, we were seeing the rise in the fentanyl issues. So when I came on, and I remember being at one scene and walking into a basement suite. RCMP had secured the scene, needles everywhere. And I have to say a big shout out to the RCMP and all first responders. The RCMP would always ensure that my safety was there so that I could conduct my investigation.
Right.
I remember there was some people still there who were on drugs. the RCMP put their physical bodies between me and them to make sure that I was safe.
Yeah.
They were also looking out to making sure that I didn't accidentally step into or reach into a needle.
Yeah.
And they were always there for me, and
Yeah.
I'm just so appreciative to them.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's so hard when you're walking into these places. Yeah.
Devastating.
It is devastating, and it's easy to
Wasted lives, right? So.
Yeah, and it's easy for us as society because it's scary for society. We're seeing it, right? We're seeing people who are on drugs and their behaviors are erratic or can be aggressive, and so it's hard for all of us. But it's hard for them too.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so much behind it, likely, right? That we don't really know.
Exactly. So I really loved my work there. Unfortunately, it came to an end. And
why?
So I had a scene down in Quesnel. I had one in Prince George. I wrapped up my investigation there. I had the RCMP hold the Quesnel scene, and I drove down there, and it was in January. And it was already late in the evening when I started my drive down to Quesnel. I got down there, did my investigation, wrapped that up, and I started to return. And on my drive back, I got into a single motor vehicle incident, and it occurred when a deer ran out. I slammed on my brakes, and sorry, I'm gonna tear up because this one's still sensitive for me. So I started to slide.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I was gonna hit the deer or if I was
gonna...
gonna...
Was it in the winter or was it in the...
It was in the winter, January. Yeah. So I started to slide, and at the same time, there was a transport truck coming towards me.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I was gonna stay in my lane.
Yeah.
And so in that moment, I thought a strong possibility that I was going to die.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how everything slows down in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was very fortunate. I only hit the deer.
Yeah.
And transport truck kept on going, and I laughed it off in the moment. I was like, oh, it's just nothing, very mild. Deer actually popped back up. I hit the deer flew. I was still sliding, hit the deer a second time.
Yeah.
The deer managed to get up and kind of walk off to the side of the road. I got home, and the following day I just called my boss, and I said, this happened. I'm just going to need some time. I'm finding a little bit upset. She's like, no problem. Take whatever time you need.
Sure.
Then within a month, I was back to working, and I took a case, but I noticed I was starting to get sensitive, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't separate myself from their emotions. And when you're doing work like that, it's important that you can do that.
Yeah.
And so I found that I was getting very emotional at the scenes alongside the people who were grieving.
Yeah.
Took a little bit more time, and then on a different night, I got a call to go back down to Quesnel, and it was a single motor vehicle that got hit by a transport truck and died.
Yeah.
I lost it in that moment. Everything came crashing down around me.
Yeah.
The realization that I just didn't feel safe anymore.
Yeah.
And so I took time off of work. And then it kept on getting extended and extended. Finally, we opened WorkSafe, and WorkSafe sent up a psychologist to assess me, and they diagnosed me with PTSD. Yeah. And so my career at the coroner's office came to an end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So the PTSD, so
it is, and John,
likely also cumulative, right? So
yeah, absolutely. But John, I think about your story and everything you went through, and I think about when I think about my little tiny incident, I feel a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
That was my outcome, considering what you went through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real So it's very, very real, so.
For yourself, like with everything that you faced, because I mean, I don't know if a lot of people have read your book, but for those who haven't, can you share with us what you went through?
Yeah, to me it was important, Angela, that I shared everything, so, and that's what I'm trying to do in the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So including, the war years and, and other trauma of different sorts, so, and then, including something PTSD is understood in particular with those that have been exposed to, trauma of some sort or another that, like in your case, and then in mine a little bit different, but still always that stays with me. And then the other one was the inner child. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where, the inside of you is still that little, in my case, boy that never resolved that.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it's interesting that you bring up the inner child because for myself, I think I was probably a little susceptible because in my childhood I experienced abuse. So I was sexually abused. Yeah. And so that child, on some level, is still traumatized. Yeah. 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 So.
Yeah. And so did you then get counseling for that, or?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've had it throughout my life, and I am such a strong proponent of, getting and seeking out the help you need and not feeling any shame around it.
Exactly.
There can be a lot of shaming in people. I when I hear people say, "Oh, I'm seeing a counselor," and their tone goes quiet and they turn inwards, as if there's shame around that. And this is something we need to strip away in our society because it's easy for us to build up our physical health. It's easy for us to recognize the need for that, and it's very supportive, and we cheer on people. Yeah. But the one thing that we don't see a lot, and I think as a society we need to work on, is that emotional and mental health and being open and just,
And that's one of the reasons that in my book I'm very open about it.
Yeah.
So both at the PTSD, inner child, and ADHD, so I'm a basket case. So, it's the tongue in cheek a little bit, but the inner child, and being very serious about it. I was already in my early 60s, late 50s, I believe, and had difficult in a relationship, that then we sought counseling, and then in that process, which went well actually, then the counseling person said when part of that is doing a one-on-one, and that there were some underlying issues that I had no idea what the inner child meant or what it was, and where he suggested then that and I talked it over with my partner as well, that there were issues around the youth. And boy, I tell you that so I went into counseling for a period of time that may have been a number of months, but really go deep and emotional, and
it is like that. I do because you so one of the things I talked to one of my counselors about is I got really good, and this is from my childhood, of compartmentalizing.
Right.
I've got my little boxes, everything goes in my box, goes on the shelf.
Right.
And then when an issue happens, a lot of times I can put it in the box, put it on the shelf.
Right.
And so I was able to manage with things. I was able to manage whatever came my way.
Right.
And people were like, oh, you're resilient, you're amazing, you can get through these things.
Right.
But this was just a skill set. But it wasn't a good skill set.
Right.
Because what was happening was I was shelving things.
Right.
And what I work that I do is take that box, open it up, right? Take a look, get in there, and it's emotional. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
You're tired.
Yeah.
Your capacity to deal with other things in your life during that time drops drastically.
Yeah.
And
it affects everything around you, right?
It absolutely does.
See, in my case, what it was that, it's in my book, but I was born in November 1940, and then, my mother was raising 3 children. I was the youngest, and a sister was 1 year older, and a brother 2 years older, and trying to survive. My dad was in the Dutch army, and they didn't know if he was dead or alive, so we didn't see him for 5 years. And they were trying to survive. My mother, with the little they had, along with everybody else around them. So things were always difficult. But I always say what I remember of the war years is that feeling of hunger. I still have that now, and the feeling, I can still feel the feeling. And then the other one is, we had a house, and we had one little small room where we had a little stove to stay warm. In the hunger winter of 1944-45 was really, really cold. A lot of people died, and so I always remember, it was hot in the front, and you burn, and cold, and to keep the house, any heat in the house was difficult. And then anxiety, because there were planes overhead, and bombing and shooting, and all of those things that are the bad things of war. And then the fear of losing that one parent.
Oh.
That was the inner child, right? So losing her, right?
Yeah, I could see that, because I never really, because I've listened to your podcast before and your book, and I never really thought of that fear that you must have carried as a child.
Yeah.
Oh, John, that's so hard.
And then then the other one, and this brings me into my next book that I'm doing is. I was already in my late 50s, and I was not very successful in my academic life. I failed grade 3. Nobody fails grade 3, really, so, and then I failed grade 7 3 times. So then they said, okay, well, that's enough, so that should we send them to the mentally challenged school, or do we get him a job someplace? I was 14 at the time. So so the school came out in at the end of May, and then all the kids were going on holidays, and then I had to get a job, and so my dad took me to a clothing store and got me a set of coveralls to work at the furniture factory. I was small for my size, so they didn't have the coveralls that fitted, so I had to roll them up to here, and the crotch was in my knees. That's modern now, but it wasn't then, and so that's how I want to work, and but it always kind of was in my mind. I became, after I started working, I really enjoyed working with wood and the furniture business, took courses and became a furniture maker, and then after that worked in the lumber. My dad had managed a small lumber mill, and then from there and built a career. But always on my mind was that we were liberated by the Canadians in April the 12th, 1945, and I always knew then that I would go to Canada, the land of my heroes.
That's amazing.
And then the other part that I wanted to do is build a mill and start over new, because I felt kind of that I had failed, it was not until I was 58 years old that I was on 4th Avenue in the store, Books on 4th.
Yeah.
I was there and I picked up this book, I don't know why, and I looked at it and I started reading it. It was driven by distractions and it talked about ADHD. I had never even heard about it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I knew that's me. And in fact, I wrote it in the book in Dutch, that's me.
Oh, did you?
Now finally I know.
Nice.
And because there was stigma around it, right?
Yeah.
Then still is,
And that stigma,
Yeah.
the mental health, right? Like the things we can't see, stigma gets attached to it.
Yeah. And so I've started, then learning more about it, and then, and more recently in the last number of years, I've been speaking in public quite a bit, and I talk about it more, ADHD and a child and PTSD, and then after I wrote the autobiography, Against All Odds,
Yeah.
and hey guys, this is it. Just those two, I guess. So I'm going to get you a copy of this as well, a signed one.
Oh, excellent.
And so I felt I had to do more on the ADHD, and then decided to write a book about it in a different form. So the book, is coming out in June. We're pretty much complete, and it's quite a process to put a book together, and this was the first one, and so we're a little bit better at it now, but it will come out in June, and it's a different format, just interviews with about 15, 16, 17 different people from different experiences with ADHD, and it talks about myself, and so I'm quite excited about it, yeah.
That is exciting. And for you to capture all of that journey that you've been through is incredible. It's incredible. I think when people share their journeys like that, it can help other people who are on their journey and help them understand maybe what they're going through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So important, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so wherever the opportunity presents itself, I like to talk about it. And so the book is not like this one, here. It's an autobiography, and it's not about how successful was John. That's not what it is about.
Yeah.
It's about, challenges that you can overcome and hopefully get past, and then opportunities that exist before, following all of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So much resiliency in your story. I love it.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
I really do. For me, for my journey, when I had realized that I couldn't do the coroner work, which was devastating because I loved it.
Yeah.
And I had to look for something new.
Yeah.
But first I had to get better. So with PTSD, you lose skill sets. Like you're impacted.
Yeah.
And so I found I had to work on these things, and I was very fortunate. WorkSafe put me through a program. It was a new program for them, a bit of a pilot, and I have to say it was very successful for me, because some of the things that I was challenged on was reading and writing comprehension. I've always excelled at that.
Right.
And so I had to work to gain that back. I found my critical and analytical thinking didn't necessarily come through the way it had. So I kind of liken it to when, and sorry if this is offensive for people with diabetes, but when you think about something with diabetes, they'll always have it, and they always have to be on top of their diet, monitoring their insulin injections and things like that.
Right.
And you had mentioned just earlier about how your experience, the experience of the inner child and the trauma from the war left you with PTSD, and there will always be a component of that with you.
Right.
And so that people with PTSD, there will always be a component of that. And so I was taught and given a toolbox. And so I'm constantly reaching into my toolbox and constantly working on this. This is going to be something that is not something I get over.
Right.
It's going to be something that I always have to be attentive to, and I have to look for the warning.
Manage in a way, and be sensitive to it, right?
Yeah, and just and so I read daily to keep that going. I write. I make sure that, you know, I'm not isolating myself, which is really hard, because that is something that I will do, is I'll pull back and I'll isolate.
Me too.
Yeah.
So what helped me is, you know, I had always difficulty, although I was fairly successful in the business when I first started in 1975, and but I had always difficulty communicating beyond the circle that I'm familiar with, 3-4 people maybe. If there were more, then I had difficulty in communicating. So it was not obvious, but it was something that I avoided.
Yeah.
And then by pure coincidence, somebody virtually dragged me into a Toastmasters meeting where I didn't want to go, really, unless they absolutely totally guaranteed me that nobody would ask me anything. I'd just sit there.
Yeah.
And then during that meeting, somebody said, "Okay, well, you want to tell us who you are?" And so I told them who I was, and then it was then my sister-in-law. She wanted me to go again next week, and I was not going to go, but I did. And then from there on in, it became 10 years that I was part of Toastmasters and rose to the highest level you can get into Toastmasters, is a distinguished Toastmaster, and it changed my life. There's no question about that. And you know, I always say it's an amazing organization. There is 7 or 8 clubs in Prince George, actually. You know, I was member for 10 years, between 1990 and 2000, I believe. Competed in public speaking, but was also very, very involved in as building Toastmasters, and in fact taught some classes at Duchess Park.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
At young persons that that was part of the Toastmaster program. Toastmasters, in a lot of ways, is you know, is amazing. Then it was $2 a week. How can you beat it? But the other thing not always understood by Toastmasters is that it does not only teach you speaking, but more importantly, it teaches you to listen. And you know, which is probably one of the most important parts about it, you know. Yeah. So, but that had a very, very positive effect on my life. And then since that, and then obviously as I built the company and did a lot of other things, you know, I've always been very involved in the community. Giving back is very important, you know, to me.
That's amazing. That is so incredible. Just knowing how you came into Canada with so little, and then building it up and giving it back, and hearing the motivation behind it, that you wanted to go to the land of your heroes.
Yeah,
it's really incredible. You've become that. You're the way you're supporting and giving back. Yeah, that's just incredible. Yeah.
I enjoy it, actually, you know, so I had an interesting thing happened about 2 weeks ago or so. A young girl contacted us, and because they were doing a project in a school, and the project was you had to find somebody that, I'm not trying to be famous, but somebody's name, and they would have to do an interview of somebody, and then as a project the following week bring it to the class, and then put something together and make a presentation about what they did. And so they asked if I would be willing to do it. I said, well, sure. So, and she came in with her mother, in fact, and then had prepared questions, and very good actually. And so we spent probably half an hour or 3/4 of an hour together, and then I gave him a copy of the book as well, and signed them, one for a mom and one for her. And then I said, well, who's going to? So so you have to do a presentation, the whole class doing next Friday. How many people in the class? She said, well, 25. So we'll get them all a book.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Oh,
and then another one for the teacher.
Yeah.
And then, so that was going to be the following Friday or so.
Yeah.
And then somehow they contacted us on Wednesday, because they said, she didn't wait till Wednesday, so they gave the books already to all the kids. Now they had to do a project on the actual book. So that was kind of interesting, so. Yeah. But, the point is that the more people we can share our stories like that with, in terms of talking about the past, and then at the same time about challenges that come along the way, and then also opportunities that present itself.
Absolutely. For me, I know for myself, like you, I'm now really focused on helping other people. So when I couldn't do the work as a coroner anymore, I had to look to something new.
Right.
And I did, odd jobs here. I mountain bike coached for a while, because I'm a very passionate mountain biker.
I saw that, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. Did the BC Enduro races and that.
Yeah.
And those were fantastic.
You're very fit.
I don't know if I would say really fit. I think it's just that I have so many things that I love doing that it just keeps me fit. Yeah.
Well, you're really also into the outdoors,
I
right?
am.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that translated into me getting my next career job, I would call it that. And so when I was mountain biking coaching, I was mountain bike coaching for the Caledonia Nordic Ski Club.
Yeah.
Because they have their summer program.
And you're the executive director now of them?
Well, I became the general manager. Yeah. So so for 3 years, and until the end of November, I was the general manager for Caledonia Nordic Ski Club.
Yeah.
And I came in December.
Yeah.
I think it was December the 9th.
Yeah.
And that was the year they were bringing in the Para-Nordic championships, the World Para-Nordic Championships.
Unbelievable.
Oh, it was incredible. Talk about a steep learning curve.
I believe you were involved in sponsoring something of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're very, very appreciative.
Yeah.
Like it's so incredible, because it's a not-for-profit. I don't know if people realize that the Caledonia Nordic Ski Club is a not-for-profit.
Yeah, it's a good thing to mention, just to make sure everybody knows that.
Yeah. And so it's about community and bringing what they call sport for life through cross-country skiing.
Yeah.
And because they do follow that sport for life, they're like, well, cross-country skiing only lasts, during the winter.
Yeah.
We do have athletes that will train through the summer as well.
Yeah.
So what else can be done? And so the prior general manager, John Bowes, he brought in mountain biking, and that's where I got hired. Because of my passion behind the mountain biking, because of my experience in the racing circuit, he brought me in, and I got certified as an instructor. I went down into Kelowna to do that.
Okay.
Came back, and I did that. And then John got to know me, and he learned about my background and that. And John made the decision to return to his original career of being a teacher. And unbeknownst to me, they had posted for the general manager position. And he goes, why don't you apply on this? I go, I don't know. Like, I'm not that knowledgeable of the cross-country world. And he goes, I think you've got the skill set for it. So I applied, and I was successful in it. And so I was there for 3 years. and worked on a lot of community impact programs and just growing membership. So was able to grow the membership by 60%.
Wow.
Yeah, it was incredible. We navigated through COVID.
Yeah.
And
that was all recently, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I found that my evenings and weekends were really, I was giving a lot because as a not-for-profit, there's a lot of volunteers. And so a lot of your time has to be matched to what your volunteers are doing.
Yeah.
And it was having an impact on my personal life. So
became quite demanding.
Yeah. So one piece of the story that we haven't touched on is after my incident and that left me with PTSD, my relationship with my husband actually started to fall apart, and we ended up separating.
Okay. Sorry to hear.
Yeah, it was hard
Yeah.
for all of us, and that. So I was a single parent managing there, and that I found that my time with my children wasn't as there as I would have liked it to be.
Yeah.
And so I made the decision to look for another opportunity. And one of the things that I've always wanted to do is to have my own business, because I love to be challenged, and I thought that would, and I thought that would be the ultimate challenge. And so serendipitously, I was approached because someone I was working with over at Pivot Leader, we were in a conversation, that's Dave over there, and I was talking to him about this, and he goes, well, I might have something coming. They're putting their prospectus together, but I can't tell you what it is. So I didn't know anything. As soon as I started to think possibly of leaving, I immediately told the president of the board of directors, because I know that trying to fill a position, it's really important to find the right person. So I kept him apprised as we were going along. And so I was like, well, it's looking stronger and stronger, like this might be a possibility. And then it was confirmed. I was going to purchase this existing business in town. And of course, I can't share because of confidentiality. There's those agreements you sign. And until the sale date is done, everything's kept quiet. And on December the 1st, I became the new owner of Chinook Yoga. Yeah. And what a journey. Oh, John, what a journey. When I look back through all the different things, the one consistent thing that I can say has been there through all of it is trying to help people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a natural for you at that particular point, right?
Yeah.
And Chanuk became available at the right time, and and you were able to acquire it.
Yeah, I did. And
so now you're into it 2 months. Early December you got it. So December, is a bit of a different month, but then December, January. So you're into it now 2 months, right?
2 months.
Yeah.
So 3 weeks in, public health order comes out. We're shut down.
Yeah. Timing not good.
No, the timing was hard. Fortunately, the previous owners had already gone through this, and they had created virtual classes.
Yeah.
So we were able to keep classes going, but it's not ideal. It's hard on the teachers. They really enjoy.
So how is it now then? Is it still closed?
We were able to open, but we're very limited.
Yeah.
Due to the area that they want spacing between people.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we have very small classes. And
are there not signs now that they think that this may change fairly quickly?
I'm hoping so. I listened to Dr. Bonnie Henry's announcement
a couple of days ago.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful. I know when she originally made the announcement to reopen, she said this current restriction allowing us to go back, so this is all the fitness and the dance and yoga studios, was to go until the 16th.
Yeah.
So I'm tentatively waiting.
16th, that is 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, so I'm tentatively waiting and hoping that things will lift more. Yeah.
I think this fairly, unless something else happens, hopefully that is not the case, but there's a very good chance that that may happen, right? Make it a bit easier.
I hope so. We've been really committed to making sure the space is safe. There's masks. People need to be vaccinated to come in, and for the people who are unable to get vaccinated or choose not to, my heart breaks. My heart breaks because they're being isolated in our community, and it's so hard. And we've got such a split in our community right now. Yeah, and it's so hard to see this split that's occurring. So
Chinook Yoga is located on Vancouver Street?
Yes, 320 Vancouver Street.
302?
320.
320 on Vancouver Street. Beautiful building, right?
It is.
Yeah, and it was a very, very good location. Can they, people that want to make inquiries, can they phone or can they go to a website of some sort?
Yeah, absolutely. So
have you got it? We just want to make sure that that everybody knows, because I know it's going to be very, very good.
Yes. So we have a website, ChinookYoga.com.
Which is it?
ChinookYoga.com.
Yeah.
And with that, you can go onto the website. You can see our classes that are available.
Okay.
And you can book classes through there.
Okay.
Also, you can call the studio at 250-564-9642.
Okay.
And you can call and ask. Many times you'll go to voicemail because we do keep the phones off so they don't ring through to the yoga, but we'll return calls.
Yeah. Just don't give up to make the calls, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's going to be very, very exciting, very, very good location, and and obviously you and your team, I already know are very, very good. You know, so.
Oh well, thank you. Well, that brings me to a little gift. I got you a 1-month unlimited pass to Chinook Yoga.
Thank you.
I've seen the pictures of you with your weightlifting, the powerlifting you had done, and I'm like, oh, John's a do-it guy. Like, he'll do things.
Yeah, well, obviously I'm affected by the same as everybody else is because the gyms are closed, and I'm hoping to get back to the gym fairly quickly and hopefully then compete again. Yeah. Even at my age, so that everything is possible.
Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 81.
Really?
Yeah, I will be 82 in November.
I love that. One of the things that I have learned, and I love my perceptions being challenged, is you don't have to age in the way that our media and society paints aging to be. Because right now, everything's about being youthful and staying youthful and looking young. Yeah. So at the Caledonia Nordic Ski Club and at Chinook Yoga, there are people in their 70s and their 80s, and they move better than I do.
Right.
I'm in my 40s.
Yeah.
And they're fluid. And there's this one woman, she's in her 70s, and she moves like she's in her 30s. It's incredible.
It's incredible. All who you want to be, right?
Absolutely.
And then there is enough information available that take care of yourself physically, mentally. Yeah. Avoid negative, and so one of the things, the fundamentals in my life is attitude, avoid the negative, passion. Yeah. Whatever I do with passion and work ethic, and but follows that, and all the things you want to do is success.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And age is just a number.
It is just a number. When when we had the McWalter Media Group come into the studio sent by yourself, Wally was with me, and Brooklyn was leading the class. Wally, he's in his 70s.
Yeah.
And this is another piece, is I think people get this thought like it's too late for me, which is not true, because Wally, he said he started in his 60s. And if you see some of that video clip, he is moving amazingly. And that's the thing about, going out and doing things is, it's going to be hard for the first bit. But that's normal. Your body is getting used to it, and with time and commitment, you're gonna gain it. And it's incredible to see the transformation in people, mind and body.
Yeah, when I turned 70, I started going to the gym.
Is that when you started?
Yeah.
Oh, seriously? Yeah. I've seen those pictures. Those are incredible.
And then, but initially when I went down to the gym, Gold's actually, and I love the guys there. And so I would go there, and then initially oh my God, I was so self-conscious because all those people look so perfect. Yeah. And I came in overweight and all the other kind of things. And then I don't even know how to sit on a machine. And, so, and I felt that everybody was watching me. Anyway, so I got a trainer. I was very, very lucky. I always work with trainers, and and then we went on and on and on and on, and then before you know it, a number of years later, somebody said to me, "Oh, you look good," and I said, "Me?" And and I started kind of looking and starting to work a little bit more, and then the next thing said, "Well, maybe have you ever thought about competing?" Really? And so then I think it was, I probably was 2017. I must have been 77 or something. And so I competed here at the competition here. And, so now can you imagine that I'm standing with my little Speedos on in front of all my friends?
I've seen those pictures. You're ripped.
and so I came in second in bodybuilding, third in physique.
Yeah.
That qualified me for the provincials, came in third in bodybuilding, second in physique, which qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. And I want to do it again, again when obviously then COVID happened, and but at 82 I want to go again to the gym and again compete, hopefully in 2023.
Nice.
Why not?
I love it. Right? Why not?
Now, one thing that we have to still do.
What's that?
Because we have not talked about airplanes.
Oh,
so,
yes.
And before we end, you have to tell me about airplanes, because I saw a picture of you with a Cessna 172 or a 152.
Yeah.
So you have to tell me about your airplane.
Okay, so it's not mine.
No.
But I love learning, and I love new experiences. I love adventuring. And one of the things I've always wanted to do is get my air pilot license.
Correct.
And I've always put it off because it costs a lot of money. It
does.
Really does. And and I thought, why am I putting this off? Because of that. And I'm just going to pick away at it slowly. As I can afford it, I'll book the hours. And so I registered myself. I just took that, again, it's that leap. Sometimes it takes a leap to get something started. Yeah, exactly. And so all of those pivotal moments, it's that leap. And it's scary as hell, John. And so I contacted them. I took an introductory flight. Loved it.
Here in Prince George.
Yeah, here in Prince George. There's training here in Prince George. Guardian's airplane,
they are located at the airport.
They are. And loved it. Eric, who's the owner, he had taken me up. I think he gave me a little bit more, just over an hour, which I'm very grateful to him for. And I signed up. I'm currently in the ground school. So to get my license, I have to do ground school first. So that's understanding. So it's all the book learning. It's a lot too. Oh my gosh, it's a lot. and then I can start chipping away at getting my hours, and that's how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to chip away slowly and not let my perception of how things should be ideal before I start it. I think sometimes we get we trip ourselves up by thinking it has to be ideal. But the airplane, oh my gosh. And then I heard that you're a pilot.
I am. I'm a private pilot. I was in the Air Force, in the Dutch Air Force for when I was 18 to 20. And I wanted to be a pilot flying jets, and I unfortunately, while I was in the Air Force, they didn't put me there. I became an Air Force police and special forces, and so I did that for 2 years. Went through long boot camp, of 6 months, and and then. So I didn't become a jet pilot there, and then when I was in Canada, I spent 5 years in the Yukon, in Watson Lake, and I got my private license in Watson Lake.
Oh, wow.
And so ever since that time, I've been flying, doing some flying, not as much hours as I would have liked to have had, but and at the same time, even now, I still have a hangar on the Victoria Airport, and I'm still working on my commercial license.
No way. Oh my, that's...
Yeah, and
I love that you've got that determination. Like you're just, you're going for it.
I just love, like you, I love flying, and so it's, so that's what I like to do.
So do you have a plane?
I have had about 3 or 4 different planes.
Tell me
right now
about
I
them.
don't have one, but but I'm still working on my commercial license in flying a twin Piper.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So of the 3 planes that you had, what was your favorite?
Of the planes?
Yeah.
The Piper Cup. And the Piper Cup that I had, that was the first plane that I bought in Watson Lake in the Yukon. It's a float plane.
Oh.
It's a tandem seat where you sit one in the front, one in the back, but on floats. And very, very popular among people that love planes. Piper Cup, very, very popular. But then I used to fly from Watson Lake right through the mountains up Cassiar and that direction right into Prince George.
Wow, that's incredible. Is it hard? Is it hard to land a float plane?
No, it isn't, but it is different, and you get special recognition for it on your flying license.
My fingers are crossed that I can work towards that, because I love the outdoors. I fish, I hunt, I hike, and I want to be able to get into these areas. And I think that's one of the driving things that why I want to get my license is to be able to access these beautiful parts of British Columbia.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience to fly, and especially here in this country, so beautiful.
Have you had scary experiences?
By me?
Have you had scary experiences?
No, not really. As you go through it, I've always flown. Even now, I fly a lot commercially. And then, the one experience I had is the first when I came here in 1965, July of 1965. The first time I went back to Holland was in early December of. Not 66, 67, and was with a twin engine plane, and developed an engine fire over just before Iceland. So we landed on a U.S. base there. Yeah. And,
wow.
And I was sitting right next to the. Looking outside when the engine caught fire, and I knew this was trouble.
Do you attribute the calmness through these situations due to your military training or your experience as a child? Like just being able to put
a combination
yourself...
of all the above. Yeah.
Do you find you go into a zone when things get hard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even being an entrepreneur and building companies and all of that.
Yeah.
In a different form, this also happens, and you know, so and you develop you know, skill sets that you can deal with it. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for being my guest, Angela. And I have a special gift for you. It's a book, and I will sign it for you against all odds.
Thank you so much, John. I was hopeful I was going to get a signed book. I'm quite excited.
Oh, for sure. You know, so and then we have also a special video for you to see.
Everybody comes to yoga for a different reason. Some people are looking to help their bodies. Maybe they're starting to feel tightness, or their movement is not as fluid as it used to be, and so they come to yoga to try and correct some of those things. So I'm Angela Lefebvre. I'm the owner of Chinook Yoga, and we're here in Prince George, BC, and it's a beautiful city with many yoga studios, and Chinook Yoga is one of the longest, or is the longest, yoga studio in town. For me, it started out for the practice of complementing and helping with my activities. So I'm a very active person, do a lot of outdoor activities, and I've had a lot of crashes on my mountain bike and snowboard, and I needed to find something that could get me through those periods and to make sure that I could go and return back to the things that I loved. And it worked really well for me. We talk about grounding and position. And with that practice, you're really learning how to stand properly, or when your hands connect to the earth, you're learning how to root. We call it rooting. And there's a spiritual aspect to rooting down into the earth, slowing down and really feeling where you are. That's that mindfulness piece. And also it's really raising awareness of your body. How are you? Like, are you leaning into one foot more than the other? Are you putting more pressure on your hand? Occasionally people will have injuries and we need to do modifications for people. So maybe if you have a wrist that's injured, you need to have some modifications that you're not putting those pressures on. But those pieces of connecting and rooting down is the foundation piece of your positions. Right now we are reduced in class sizes. We're being respectful and supportive of the public health orders. We are looking forward to when they are lifted though, because we know how important this is to our community. So we do have in-class and we have virtual. So all of our classes are recorded. Our teachers have done an amazing job of connecting with the people who are in the room as well as the people who are online. We have drop-in capacity, we have punch cards, we have various levels of memberships, whether you just want to be virtual only, and we do have virtual people as far away as Manitoba. Yeah, it's quite exciting.